in which Piglet is entirely surrounded by water. It rained and it rained and it rained. Piglet told himself that never in all his life, and he was goodness knows how old now, was it 3, 4? Never had he seen so much rain. Days and days and days. If only, he thought, as he looked out of the window, I'd been in Pooh's house, or Christopher Robin's house, or Rabbit's house when it began to rain, then I should have had company all this time, instead of being here all alone, with nothing to do, except wonder when it will stop. And he imagined himself with Pooh, saying, "Did you ever see such rain, Pooh?" And Pooh saying, "Isn't it awful, Piglet?" And Piglet saying, "I wonder how it is over Christopher Robin's way." And Pooh saying, "I should think poor old Rabbit is about flooded out by this time." It would have been jolly to talk like this, and really it wasn't much good having anything exciting like floods if you couldn't share them with somebody. For it was rather exciting. The little dry ditches in which Piglet had nosed about so often had become streams, and the little streams across which he had splashed were rivers, and the rivers between these steep banks that they had played so happily had now sprawled out of its own bed and were taking up so much room everywhere that Piglet was beginning to wonder whether it would be coming into his bed soon. "It's very anxious," he said to himself, "to be a very small animal entirely surrounded by water." Christopher Robin and Pooh could escape by climbing trees, and Kanga could escape by jumping, and Rabbit could escape by burrowing, and Owl could escape by flying, and Eeyore could escape by making a loud noise until rescued. And here am I, surrounded by water, and I can't do anything. It went on raining, and every day the water got a little higher, until now it was nearly up to Piglet's window, and still he hadn't done anything. "There's Pooh," he thought to himself. "Pooh hasn't much brain, but he never comes to any harm. He does silly things and they turn out right. There's Owl. Owl hasn't exactly got a brain, but he knows things. He would know the right thing to do when surrounded by water. There's Rabbit. He hasn't learnt in books, but he can always think of a clever plan. There's Kanga. She isn't clever. Kanga isn't. But she would be so anxious about Roo that she would do a good thing to do without thinking about it. And then there's Eeyore. And Eeyore is so miserable anyhow that he wouldn't mind about this. But I wonder what Christopher Robin would do." Then suddenly he remembered a story which Christopher Robin had told him about a man on a desert island who had written something in a bottle and thrown it into the sea. And Piglet thought that if he wrote something in a bottle and threw it in the water, perhaps somebody would come and rescue him. He left the window and began to search his house. All of it wasn't underwater, and at last he found a pencil and a small piece of dry paper and a bottle with a cork in it. So he wrote on one side of the paper, "Help! Piglet! Me!" in brackets. And on the other side, "It's me! Piglet! Help! Help!" Then he put the paper in the bottle, and he corked the bottle up as tightly as he could, and he leant out of the window as far as he could lean without falling in, and threw the bottle as far as he could throw. Splash! And in a little while it bobbed up again on the water, and he watched it floating away in the distance until his eyes ached with looking. And sometimes he thought it was the bottle, and sometimes he thought it was a ripple in the water which was following, and then suddenly he knew that he would never see it again, and that he had done all he could do to save himself. So now, he thought, somebody else will have to do something, and I hope they will do it soon, because if they don't, I shall have to swim, which I can't, so I hope they do it soon. And then he gave a very loud sigh and said, "I wish Pooh were here. It's so much more friendly with two." When the rain began, Pooh was asleep. It rained, and it rained, and it rained. And he slept, and he slept, and he slept. And he had had a tiring day. You remember how he discovered the North Pole? Well, he was so proud of this that he had asked Christopher Robin if there were any other poles such as a bear of little brain might discover. Well, there's a South Pole, said Christopher Robin, and I expect there's an East Pole and a West Pole, though people don't like talking about them. Pooh was very excited when he heard this and suggested that they should have an expedition to discover the East Pole. But Christopher Robin had thought of something else to do with Kanga, so Pooh went out to discover the East Pole by himself. Whether he discovered it or not, I forget, but he was so tired when he got home that in the very middle of his supper, after he had been eating for a little more than half an hour, he fell asleep in his chair, and he slept and slept